A gracious good day to one and all, once again. 'Tis I, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, back with you all once again for episode 70 of Emperor Norton's Fantastic History Vlog. Today is June 15, 2020, and it is our 92nd day under a shelter-in-place order here in San Francisco. Of course, being Monday, this is catch-up day. It means we have to catch up from the weekend. By the way, if you did not see this Saturday's vlog with the Countess Lola Montez, as we do every Saturday, check it out. It's wonderful. We have some big surprises for you this month, so stay tuned on Saturdays especially. But of course, we're here with you here 6 days a week. This vlog Monday through Friday, the Countess and I on Saturday. Well, let's get on with our national days. June 13, National Kitchen Klutzes of America Day. We do not include ourselves in that. World Softball Day, Gin Day. And as a matter of fact, we issued a special proclamation last year regarding gin and its role in the martini. Birthplace of the martini, some say here in San Francisco, some say Martinez, California. If you've never been there, there is a plaque placed there that says that that's where the martini was invented, placed there by the ancient and honorable order of E. Clampus Vitus. What say the brethren? So here is the proclamation that we issued last year, and it is still in effect. Whereas the martini was invented in California, and whereas it is enjoyed by many of our loyal subjects, and whereas the martini has been bastardized by modern culture, therefore, be it resolved that we, Norton the First, by grace of God, Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico, do hereby proclaim the martini should consist of nothing but gin and vermouth, garnished with an olive, onion, or twist of lemon peel. Don't get me started on those vodka concoctions. They are not martinis, and that's by imperial decree. There. Well, let's get on with the rest of our days. June 14, World Blood Donor Day. Hope you can donate blood. If you can, please do. We need it. Pig Callers Day. Sweet! Flag Day, of course. Strawberry Shortcake Day, and Bourbon Day. June 15th, Smile Power Day. National Lobster Day, and World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Well, let's move on with our local events for today. And as usual, for this, we often, as we do today, rely upon John Ralston's wonderful book, This Date in San Francisco. Pick it up. It's a great book. A little hard to find, though, I just discovered yesterday, but it is out there. Well, it was on this date, June 13, actually, 1907, that Mayor Eugene E. Schmitz of San Francisco is convicted of extortion. When the great earthquake and fire struck on April 18, 1906, Schmitz rose to the occasion. But by the end of the year, his administration was back to normal. The graft prosecution got a new grand jury to return indictments against boss Abe Roof and Mayor Schmitz for extortion in the French restaurant case, in which restaurant owners were obliged to join a phony association of boss roofs in order to keep their liquor licenses. Early in 1907, the prosecution trapped the Board of Supervisors into accepting bribes, and all but two confessed to getting numerous payoffs from Roof. Roof was left no choice but to plead guilty. When Schmitz held out, Roof testified at Schmitz's trial that he split $5,000, quote, attorney's fees, unquote, from the restaurant owners with him. The jury found Schmitz guilty of extortion. On July 8th, Judge Frank Dunn sentenced him to 5 years in San Quentin. Schmitz was automatically removed from office, but spent only a short time in jail. The state Supreme Court ruled that a liquor license was not technically property, so there was no extortion. Schmitz went into business afterwards, tried a political comeback, and was even elected as supervisor twice. He died in 1928, age 64. And on June 14th, 1996, Herb Caen Day is celebrated from Market Street to the Embarcadero. In April 1996, 60 years after coming from Sacramento to San Francisco to begin writing for the Chronicle, Herb Caen turned 80 years old. On March 20th, he accepted a special Pulitzer Prize for journalism as a continuing voice and conscience of his city. Beginning July 5th, 1938, Caen had written over 16,000 some word columns. Almost from the start, Caen was a San Francisco institution, required reading for anyone wanting to know what was going on. Getting mentioned even semi-favorably or unfavorably was a coveted honor. We were mentioned in his column on a number of occasions. At the time Caen collected his Pulitzer, he took a few days off. On May 30th, he wrote why. Feeling unwell, he'd seen his doctor and had been diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer. Cain's columns appeared less frequently as he underwent chemotherapy. He was besieged with letters of support, sympathy, and advice. The greatest tribute came from the city he loved, the Board of Supervisors, in a move reserved for only a few San Franciscans during their lifetimes, passed a resolution naming the Bayfront walkway on the east side of the Embarcadero Herb Caen Promenade. Mayor Willie Brown proclaimed June 14, 1996 as Herb Caen Day. On June 10, 1997, the last column by Caen appeared on Friday, February 1st. San Francisco learned that he had succumbed. Robin Williams said, "I have this vision of him in heaven with St. Peter and everyone walking around saying, 'Who's that with Herb?'" Caen once said, "One day if I do go to heaven, I'll look around and say, it ain't bad, but it ain't San Francisco." Hats off to Herb Caen. And our last event for over the weekend, June 15, 1878, late 19th century saw motion picture technology develop at a rapid pace as cameras and other technology slowly became mainstream. One of the earliest attempts at moving image was the result of a test by film pioneer Edward Muybridge. The purpose of the 24 rapidly taken photographs of a galloping horse was to see whether a horse lifts all four of its feet off the ground during a gallop, which human eyes could not see at a certain speed. The images showed that the horse sometimes has all 4 feet off the ground simultaneously. Now that was to settle a bet from Leland Stanford that all 4 feet were not off the ground. In 1880, Muybridge showed the images of the California School of Fine Arts, the first ever motion picture exhibition, and those pictures were taken in Palo Alto. Well, let's get on to our events in history. It was on June 13, 1886, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the 14th Amendment. It was ratified in 1868, granting citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, and guaranteed all citizens equal protection of the laws. We'll get back to that in a moment at the end today. Very significant thing happened today. 1920, the U.S. Post Office says children cannot be sent by parcel post. This had to be enacted after several instances of that took place. 1958, Frank Zappa graduates from Antelope Valley High School in Lancaster, California. 1967, Thurgood Marshall is nominated as the first African-American Supreme Court Justice. 1983, NASA's Pioneer 10 becomes the first man-made object to leave the solar system. Moving on to June 14, 1775, the U.S. Army first forms as the Continental Army to fight the American Revolutionary War. 1846, the California Bear Flag Republic is proclaimed in Sonoma, declaring independence from Mexico. 1847, Robert Bunsen invents the Bunsen burner. 1850, the third great fire of early San Francisco starts in a bakery chimney. 1876, the California Street Cable Car Company gets its franchise. That company was owned by Leland Stanford. 1922, U.S. President Warren G. Harding is the first president to use radio as he dedicates the Francis Scott Key Memorial in Baltimore. Of course, we know that Harding passed away here in San Francisco at the Palace Hotel. We'll get to that on the day that happened. 1942, Anne Frank begins her famous diary. 1953, Elvis Presley graduates from L.C. Hughes High School in Memphis, Tennessee. As he was handed his diploma, he said, "I want to thank you very much." 1961, 106 degrees Fahrenheit, the hottest temperature ever recorded in San Francisco. It's in the 60s today. It's a little cold and windy out there, which is why we're not vlogging today from the Imperial Gardens. 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is nominated to the United States Supreme Court by President Bill Clinton. Stay healthy, Ruth. We need you. June 15, 1215, the year, King John signs the Magna Carta. 1775, George Washington is appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army the day after Congress establishes the force. 1864, Robert E. Lee's home area in Arlington, Virginia becomes a military cemetery, Arlington Cemetery. 1877, Robert Ossian Flipper becomes the first African-American to graduate from West Point Military Academy. 1911, the Tabulating Computer Recording Corporation is incorporated. It would later become International Business Machines, but we know it today as IBM. 1924, J. Edgar Hoover assumes leadership of the FBI. Let's see, moving on. We're still on June 15th, pardon me. I don't know if I said that at the beginning. I think I did. Yes. In 1963, the song Sukiyaki, sung by Japanese singer Kyo Sakamoto, hits #1. It is the first Japanese language song to achieve #1 status in the U.S. And on August 12th, 1985, Sakamoto was aboard Japan Airlines Flight 123. Departing from Tokyo, heading to Osaka for an event, the plane crashed into a mountain. A disaster that remains the deadliest single aircraft accident in history, killing 520 people all aboard. On this date in 1965, Bob Dylan records Like a Rolling Stone, which was named #1 in Rolling Stones magazine's 500 greatest songs of all time. How does it feel? 1974, All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, detailing their Watergate investigation, is published. 1985, Pryor's Place, a children's show starring Richard Pryor, last airs on CBS TV. It lasted 1 season, 13 episodes. I never knew they let him have a children's show. I've got to go find an episode of this to see. That must be something. 1992, Vice President Dan Quayle, relying on a faulty card, erroneously instructs Trenton, New Jersey elementary school student, to spell potato, P-O-T-A-T-O-E, during a spelling bee. And just today, the United States Supreme Court rules the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits sex discrimination, applies to discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Let's get into our births today. Well, not today, June 13, the First Lady, Martha Washington. 1892, and that was, 1731 was the date on that, pardon me. 1892, actor Basil Rathbone. 1926, Paul Land. 1986, Ashley and Mary-Kate Olsen, the Olsen twins. Of course, we know them from Full House. Moving on to June 14, Harriet Beecher Stowe, 1811, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. 1909, folk singer, folk songwriter, I believe, as well as an actor. Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, just name one of his roles. Burl Ives. 1928, Che Guevara. 1931, Marla Gibbs. Of course, you remember her from The Jeffersons. And 1961, Boy George. Moving on to June 15, 1963, actor Helen Hunt. 1964, actor Courtney Cox. 1969, rapper, actor Ice Cube. And 1973, actor Neil Patrick Harris, of course, from Doogie Howser. Congratulations, Neil Patrick Harris, on surviving being a childhood actor, as many don't. Let's get on to our deaths today. Well, June 13, once again. 1886, King Ludwig II of Bavaria. Now, this is not the Ludwig who was who Lola Montez was the consort of. This was his nephew, the Mad King Ludwig. A lot of people get confused about that, you know. Moving on to June 14, American impressionist Mary Cassatt. 1994, Henry Mancini, the composer of the theme for the Pink Panther, Moon River, just to name a couple of his very famous songs, also a great band leader. Speaking of band leaders and clarinetists, 1986, we lost Benny Goodman. 1989, Fran Allison of Kukla, Fran and Ollie. 1993, Deke Slayton, astronaut, won the Mercury 7. And 1988, Red Smythe, or Smith, I'm not sure which way to pronounce it, he did the comic strip Andy Cap. June 15th, we lost 11th American President James Polk. Of course, Polk Street in San Francisco is named after him. 1993, John Connolly. He was an American politician, 39th Governor of Texas, federal treasurer at one point. He was critically wounded in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. 1996, we lost one of the greatest singers of all time, Ella Fitzgerald. 2014, we lost DJ, voice actor, Casey Kasem. He was the voice of Shaggy in Scooby-Doo. Yoinks! Well, that wraps it up for today. Until the next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay inside. But if you go outside, which you can do now on a limited basis, wear a mask. Don't be a baby about that. I'm quite ashamed of the people of Orange County right now who got up and testified at the Board of Supervisors meeting that they don't want to wear masks or anything like that. Well, we'll see you around someday. Be kind to one another. I know I just said some mean things, but please be kind to one another. And until we see you again, a gracious